Good morning. Of course, I forgot something. That's why it's always so helpful to have extra hands. Um, Unfortunately, Renee is not with us today because he got called in at the last minute to go work the gallery. So I am on my own today. So fingers crossed we don't have any technical issues. With a little bit of luck, we might actually get through the whole day without a glitch, which would be unusual for me in the last couple of weeks. It has been glitching like crazy for everything. Good morning to Carrie Henderson, hello, and Sylvie Miller, hello, and Peg Brandewie, hello, Peg, and Leanne Cunningham from Hot, Nevada. Yeah, we're doing the hot thing here too. And Myrnie Mac, hello, sweetie. And Lillian Orea, did I say that right? Buenos dias, this Colombia. Buenos dias, mi amiga. And Trish Coffee, hello. I saw your name earlier. I'm so glad you joined us. And Penny Fredericks and Caron Addis. I always want to call you Carol, but it's Caron. Caron. My tongue's hung in the middle, wags at both ends. Good morning to everybody. We're going to be painting this delicate fuchsia today. I really love this piece. I've been having entirely too much fun with this in and out series, using that tiny little gold frame and then having things pop out and go over. I just love these simple florals. They're easy, they're fun to paint, and you don't need 35 colors in order to paint them. So we're going to be doing that. If you have been on the website in the last couple of days, I actually got a few emails this morning saying, can you please hold the sale for a couple of days more? Yes, we will. So we have this big pattern sale, surface sale, etc. on the website. I put it up just before I went on holidays. Pardon me. But of course, everybody's on holidays at the same time. So a lot of you are coming back and didn't want to miss it. So we're going to let it run for a couple more days. So if you haven't gotten the patterns you want at the sale prices, then you've got an opportunity to do so. So we have that. What else? Oh, yes. We have the project for next Saturday, which is a fun one. We're doing the fuchsia today, and next Saturday we're doing Columbine, Janet's Columbine. A very dear friend has sent me some columbine seeds from her garden because she has some that are different colors from the ones that I have. Mine are purple and white. And I have a lot of purple in my flower beds. Don't ask me how that happened. It just happened. And so I've been looking for some different colors of columbine because I just love them. I just think they're so pretty. So she was gracious enough to send me some seeds from hers. And lo and behold, I was sketching and doodling, came up with a drawing for these very pretty columbine and decided to do them in a completely different color. And these ones are done with periwinkle. They're very pretty. So that is our project for next Saturday. If you'd like to have a look, the class outline and the pattern are available on the website. So if you guys are ready to get started on our delicate fuchsia, so am I. See, look at that. Everything works. I'm so proud of me. I managed to do all of this morning without messing anything up. So far, so good. Knock on wood. So this is the piece we're painting today. This one is called Delicate Fuchsia. It's a simple floral. It's fun to paint. It's easy to paint. Unfortunately, under the lights and under the camera, it looks a little washed out. It's much brighter in person. The colors are quite vivid. So we're going to have a little bit of fun painting this one. So we're going to, first we'll talk about the background and the prep for painting these very pretty little flowers. Now I started with a basic lamp black, 2 coats of lamp black on a canvas. This one is 8 by 8. It's this is a really great surface size for this type of work, working under the camera. So I'm not having to manhandle anything really big. So 8x8 is a really great size to work on. Not to mention, it actually finishes up quite quickly. So we're going to have fun with this. So the background is lamp black, 2 coats, let it dry really well. And then the top portion of the flower, the cap, these are base coated with this color. This is wild berry. It is a very pretty color, but it's a little muted. It's almost a little bit grayish, but that's what I wanted for a base. Yeah, I have Karen's purples. So we have 1 to 2 coats of wild berry on the caps and on this bud. And then the leaves back here are base coated with avocado toast. Oh, sorry, lush green. I'm a little thinking ahead here. So we have a little bit of lush green for the base color for the leaves and the stems. And then the skirt, that's what I like to call this, the skirt. This little bell-shaped portion here is base coated with warm white. Now I have 1 coat on at the moment. Just one. I'm going to grab my juice on ya. I just realized that the camera for the palette is laying on its side. You can tell Taz was in here. There we go. That cat is too much for TV, I'm telling you. She is a handful. Smoky, Utah. Who's that? Oh, Gail Jensen. Oh, I know it's terrible out west right now. And Jane Burrows, hello. Well, thank you. It's nice to have been missed. And Linda Salsini from Northern Michigan. Now, Linda, you're on the peninsula, yes? I was trying to figure that out the other day. Northern Michigan or the peninsula. I'm not sure. I know that they do make Michiganians, they do distinguish the difference. And I'm just curious what that difference is. Michigan is a nice lakefront state. Very pretty. Trish Coffee, what if you don't have my colors? Oh, well, I'm always open to changing them up. The thing about fuchsia is they come in a variety of colors, not necessarily just these pink. So you can use a variety of them. If you don't have that wild berry, use one of your darker pinks if you like, or you could even go into a yellow. I've seen yellow fuchsia. They're very pretty. You could use a dark golden yellow or even a bright yellow. The nice thing about this type of flower, given that it has so many different variants and that you can get them in such a wide range of colors, it leaves you open to using whatever you have on hand. Linda Morgan, Upper Peninsula people are called Yoopers, and we under the bridge are called trolls. Okay. Okay. So I have been educated. I've been up to the peninsula. It is absolutely beautiful up there. Over there. I should say over there because from where I live, we're roughly on the same latitude. I just live a lot further east than you. It is quite warm here. We are under storm watches right now because, well, it's been extremely hot and humid here. And we had a sudden cool off and it's clouded over. We're expecting rain and, some basic winter. Trish, yes, actually I do it step by step. So in the course of today, we will do this piece step by step all the way through to the end. Trish is joining us for the first time today. The patterns that I produce, I make sure that there's lots and lots of color photos in them so that you see how this is done step by step by step. And then through this, during our lives, we paint everything. So this piece will be finished by the end of today, by the end of our live today. So there we are. I'm just throwing a coat of white in there so that you can see it does not need to be perfect. Boys, oh boys. I'm batting 1,000 today. First, I forgot to turn on the light, and I just realized I don't have any water. A second. Left my water basin in the other room. Boys, oh boys. It's going to be a smooth day. So I was so worried about getting all the tech to work today, I forgot about the paint. All of the other stuff that we... So we have our base coat in place. Now, we're going to start with these leaves back here. And this is a simple way to paint leaves. I'm going to use a little bit of avocado toast while our... oh my stars. I think I need a new bottle of avocado toast. I'll say. There we go. So avocado toast is that nice mid-value green. It's so pretty. It's not dark, thankfully. And this is this new feature that this camera has. Oh goodness. Okay, we're close enough, I think. What's a good replacement for avocado toast? Light avocado, if you have it. It's close enough. Yeah. So we have our leaves, and we're going to start by creating a little bit of texture on these leaves. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of avocado toast on a round brush. I'm using a number 4 round. And we're going to start with these 2 leaves down here. Now, a comb stroke is all we're going to use, and it's just simple like that. Little teardrop shape. Oop, a little too close together, but that's okay. Little teardrop shape like that. And we're going to continue that. I like that little teardrop shape to start just shy of the center of that leaf. And we're going to do each leaf like that. Just a little teardrop shape. They don't have to be perfect. There we go. As you can see, they don't have to be perfect. I think I chose the wrong round for this one. It's a little too soft, but that's okay. We'll make it work. So these little teardrop shapes, as I said, they don't have to be perfect. We're going to put just a couple of little ones on these leaves. There we go. So that's what you should end up with. It kind of gives them that strange textured look. Nori Rico, good morning from hot and steamy Western Massachusetts. I'm with you on the hot and steamy. It's been very warm and very muggy here on the East Coast. Little cooler right at Seaside, but inland here where we are, which is only about an hour from the ocean, it is so muggy. 104 in Central California today. Ew. Well, I live on the East Coast, and we ordinarily only see, the high 80s at the most, and we have been well into the 90s and even higher. We hit 40 degrees here yesterday. It was just miserable. Kind of been locked up in the house for the last few days because of the heat. It's just been icky. So we're going to use a little bit of margarita. This one here is that high yellow green. I love this color. If you don't have margarita, you can use a little bit of citron green, or you can use olive green. There's a variety. As long as it's a high yellow, a yellow green, meaning that you get that more lemon lime type color, you're good. Now I'm switching to a slightly smaller brush. I moved to a number 2 to do these highlighted comma strokes. And we're going to start at the top side of each of those strokes and overstroke it. Oops. Just like that. And it's a loose stroke. We're not doing anything fancy. So when you're up close, you should see both colors. As I said, they don't have to be perfect. And of course, I think I took the worst, wonkiest round that I own to do this. Let's see what I've got. Now, if your preference is for, and I think that one's too small. Okay. If your preference is for a filbert, by all means, use a filbert. If you like them for this, just choose a nice small one. I was looking for a smaller round that didn't. Okay, I don't think that was much better, but just looking for a smaller round that would do the job. There we go. Ta-da. Now, this layering of comma strokes is usually found in like Russian style painting and Zostava, that type of thing. Oh, right to where can you get step-by-steps from the start? They're written right into the pattern. So it shows you each stage right from the very beginning. And I'm really not that far into it. This has all just been filling in space with paint. So there we go. Those are our highlights in there. I'm going to dry this. That's still a little wet. I'm going to show you one of my favorite tips. I had a young lady message me the other day about tracing onto canvas. She found it very frustrating because the canvas kept flexing, and so she wasn't getting a good transfer. So this is what I suggested. This is an 8x8 canvas. This is a 6x6 art panel. Just a piece of wood, roughly 6 inches square, anything like that. And then you can lay the canvas right over top of it because it fits into that open space in the background. And it gives you a solid piece, a solid background to do your tracing. Trish, I just base coated things for time. Otherwise, we'll be here until supper time. So, but inside the pattern, we do have a full step-by-step. And if you want to, we have a lot of videos that show, yeah, a book would work too. We have a lot of videos that show how to base coat. But there is absolutely no reason why we can't do a video on base coating. Ordinarily, depending on the surface, I do a lot right from the get, depending on what's in the background. So I missed a teeny tiny leaf over here, and I was gently reminded. There we go. There. So is that clear and close? The new camera is working out well. So I'm going to dry this fully, make sure everything is good and dry. There's Rose Frank. Hello. There. Ooh, now it's hot. Okay, we'll give that a second to cool off. We're going to start with shading these leaves. Now, the color that I chose for the leaves is this. This is Black Forest Green. I love this one. Hi, Trish. Thank you. You too, honey. What did I miss? Oh, there's Patrick. Hi. So we're going to start with, oh, this one here. Oh, look at you. Thanks, Bobby. So we're going to shade these leaves. I'm using a little bit of Black Forest Green, and it's well blended. I want it quite dark at the base of the leaf, like so. And I'm going to bring it up about 1/3 of the way. So nice soft float. And it's a nice U-shaped float. Oh, who had a birthday? Lil? Here we go. This is such a luscious looking green. There we go. Et voila. We have a number of friends that are currently have been evacuated from the Peachland area in BC. I guess it was it's very scary out there at the moment. So we'll be keeping all of those folks in their thoughts. They were evacuated due to a wildfire. It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So far, we are doing good. We haven't had, we've only had a couple of fires west of us, and they got them under control pretty quickly. So I'm using just the tip of my brush to put a very narrow shadow on the right side of these stems. So that just gives it like a little line on one side. Just like that. Michiganders. Michiganders. Okay. Oh, you're in the lower peninsula. Okay. In the middle of the top of the mitten. Oh, awesome. The funny part is I know exactly what you mean. So, there we go. And we're going to put that same float on the right side of this little piece at the top of the flower. There we go. And I'm going to dry that, and then we're going to shade underneath the flowers where the flowers overlap the stems. So it's a tiny little float. Of course, it helps if I've got paint and liquid in the brush. There we go. Little float there, little float above it. This is just what gives a little extra depth. There we are. Ta-da. Now you can repeat that a couple of times to get it nice and dark. There we go. I like to put one or two good floats on. It just makes everything a little deeper. There we are. And then we're going to float down the center vein of each of these leaves. And this is what gives those leaves that extra dimension. Now, when you're putting down that float, make sure that you've got the whole chisel edge of your brush on the surface. And I see people do this all the time, where you're just using the tip of the brush, and it gives you a teeny tiny little float. But if I take that whole chisel edge of the brush, I get a more dramatic float. Where can we watch the replay? Are you on Facebook or are you on YouTube? If you're on YouTube, you can watch it right on this channel, on my channel. It's there in perpetuity along with 400 others. And, or you can watch it on the Tracy Morrow Live page. But the YouTube channel is the best bet. Just click on live at the top of the page. We go. Look at that. Oops, I forgot to shade this little leaf. So these leaves are really starting to pop. So I'm going to let this dry. Or maybe not let it, but force it to dry. There we go. So I'm going to deepen this float at the base and the float down the center vein. Just didn't quite have enough oomph. So I want to deepen it just a little. Oh, I love this color. Love this color. There we go. That black forest green is just such an elegant green. There we are. So to highlight these leaves, I'm going to use a little bit of margarita. And I'm going to pull a float along the top edge and right along the center vein. Leading edge and down the center vein. Now I thin this margarita, pardon me, I thin this oh my goodness, Polly, I'm sorry to hear that. Rotator cuff takes forever to heal up. I know, I did mine in a few years ago and it was just, without physio, it just, oh, it was horrible. I feel your pain. Every inch of it. And hopefully it heals up soon and you can get a brush in your hand. Oh, Norma. No, oh, believe me, they don't come out perfect by any stretch of the imagination. To you, they are. I suppose you would look at it and go, oh, it looks perfect. No, I see every little flaw. I'm no different than anybody else. I see every single little flaw in everything I do. But I have, over the years, come to accept the fact that those flaws actually create a little bit of interest, I think. And what we deem a flaw is usually just our own expectations. You know, a lot of the time we have very high expectations of ourselves, especially when it comes to art, because we have a picture in our head most of the time, or at least I do, of what it should look like. And sometimes I get it right on the money, and other times I don't. And then for a little while, I'm usually quite disappointed in myself until, I come back and look at it again later on, and then I realize, it looks pretty good. And I'm being overly critical of my own work. And I mean, the point is not perfection. The point is to enjoy the process. And I absolutely love this process. So little highlight on the left side of the stem. And again, I'm being very, very light with this color. Don't forget that little highlight on that little pod at the top of the flower. It's a simple little float. Bring it down till it almost meets the pink. Almost, but not perfectly. And if you overdo it, like I just blot it with your fingertips. And then I'm doing this backwards. I should be using the chisel edge of the brush. There we go. So I've used the chisel edge to put on a very soft highlight. Oh, really, Karen? You think I like to overthink things? I overthink everything. Karen, for those that don't know, Karen and I have known each other for more like 40 years, so she knows me entirely too well. So we're almost there with these leaves, but I just realized there's another little leaf that's tucked in underneath this one, and it's going to get shaded like so. Exactly, Louise. Exactly. We have as artists, one, we're our own worst critics, and two, we have very high expectations of ourselves. Even when you first start painting, because you figure, oh, it doesn't look that hard, and then you try it. Exactly, Debbie Carlton, exactly. There's no such thing as a mistake, just a creative opportunity. No, painting should be fun, should be relaxing, and a learning process all at the same time. But that doesn't mean that you have to create something perfect every single time. I certainly don't. A lot of the time, I mean, what looks perfect to somebody else or looks flawless or what have you, I know for myself, I usually paint and repaint things a couple of times. Karen, don't laugh too hard, honey. You'll hurt your back. You poor thing. There we go. So, looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with these leaves. I am, however, going to make a lighter value of that margarita because I want the highlight on these leaves to pop a little bit. So I'm going to take a small amount of warm white, just a teeny tiny amount, and a small amount of margarita. And I'm going to blend the two together. Using that white just gives, look at this, just gives those leaves that little, look at that, pop. I love that little pop. And it doesn't have to be everywhere. You can be very selective about where you put this. So if you want, see this leaf here, I love that little punch of white. And it just goes at the edge of the leaf. But look what it does. It's tiny amount, but it creates a high contrast between that shading and the other side. And so you get this really pretty color. Oh, that's a great question. It is a recurring question, but it's one that is excellent to come back to frequently. Okay, I'm going to rinse out my angled brush. I'm going to do a quick demo. I'm going to grab a larger brush because it makes it easier to see. And I'm going to move this out of the way for just a couple of minutes. So I have a 3/4 flat brush. Nice big angled shader, like so. And I'm going to show you how to avoid the bead. The bead is when you're blending a brush and then you get a gob of the dark color right on the toe of the brush. So I'm going to show you with this. So when you're picking up color to float, you're going to pick up a small amount on the side of the brush that you want the darkest. That's where you're going to place the color. So you have a small amount of color. Now the bead that he's talking about is when you do this, you still end up with a chunk of paint at the tip of the brush. So here's how I get rid of it. I'm going to blend back and forth like so. Firmly make sure the brush bends when you're doing this. And then as you're doing this, you're going to move into that first blend. So you're going to be moving to the left. And then you work to the paint like so. And as you do it, it creates that gradient. You can see how we're going from dark and fading out, which means that it's pulling the paint across the brush. You want the darkest portion to stay at the tip, and the lightest portion to disappear as it goes across the chisel edge of the brush, so that when you float, you get that soft gradient instead of this harsh, thick line. And that harsh, thick line is just from remembering to blend. So look forward and then move back. And that's what gives you that soft gradient. So we get this really nice gradient of color when you float. I know it's not showing up on there, but that way you get rid of that little glob of paint that's sitting at the tip, that bead of color. But it is all about moving it forward into your puddle, and then it distributes the paint along the chisel edge of the brush. Hopefully that helps. Yes, Lucy, this is all on 8x8, and there's currently 4. So this is the fuchsia. Let me grab these. So the first 3 that I did all have a dragonfly. The next 3 are all going to have a butterfly. And this is next Saturday's. This is the columbine. This is the one we're doing next Saturday. This one is called Janet's Columbine, if you're looking for that pattern. And the color, by the way, this is periwinkle, which is such a pretty tone anyway. It's that lovely, walks the line between purple and blue. It's such a pretty color. And then the shading color that I used in this is called Stormy. This is just, it's such a pretty color. So this is the one we're doing next Saturday. And then there's 2 more with butterflies. Oh, I love columbine. I have them in my garden too. Mine are purple and white. So one more thing we're going to do to the stems and the leaves is we're going to take a little of that margarita, add a little bit of white, and I'm using my extra long detail liner. This one is a 5/0, and we're going to put just a stroke highlight roughly the center of these stems. Remember, we've already put a highlight in, so we don't want a ton of it. But we do need a highlight, so here we go. We just needed a brighter spot. There we go. And then we're going to add a fun little detail to the edges of these leaves, but we're going to do it a little later on. I'm having entirely too much fun with this note series. This one, what got me going on this was I did 2 pieces, one with oxeye daisy and one with pansies, and which are 2 of my favorite flowers. I also love sunflowers. I haven't done that one yet. And then we always see things like daisies, sunflowers, tulips, and whatnot, and that's great. But I wanted to do something a little different. So I thought fuchsia and columbine would make a great addition. And one of the other ones that I'm planning on doing is brown-eyed Susan. I just think it's an underrated flower, and it's so pretty. And then that kind of parlayed into doing, I've got sketches for echinacea, which I have one in the front of my house that is the most extraordinary shade of coral orange. It's just gorgeous. So I'm thinking that one might end up in one as well. So we'll see. Now, we're going to tackle that red part of this flower. Hi, Marianne. Patsy Brooks. Hi, Patsy. And Juanita Holt. Great to see the moisture in your brush. Oh, one of my favorite tricks, there's nothing more frustrating than trying to float and you don't have any water left in your brush. That drives me bananas. And one of my favorite tricks for that, especially for beginners, because a lot of the time they struggle getting that balance, figuring out how, what is the right amount of water in my brush to float with. So one of my favorite tricks is this. I use a wet sponge. And this is just a kitchen sponge, the one with the scrubby on the back, and then it's a cellulose sponge. I get one wet and then I wring it out so that it's just damp. Not drippy wet, but just damp. And then I load my brush up with water from from your water basin or full of glaze. You're never quite sure if you've got enough water. Well, if you have this sponge and you just touch the brush both sides to the surface, you will end up with just the perfect amount of water in your brush to float with. And the reason I use the sponge is this, and it has to be a wet sponge and not paper towel. Paper towel, you're going to pick up bits of lint and etc., depending on the brand, of course. Some are better than others. But the cellulose sponge, you won't have any lint. The other thing is it draws off just the excess and still leaves you with enough water in the brush to float or to paint with. And I've taught using this method to beginners for years because it works. It works exceptionally well. So, if you really struggle getting the water balance right, this is a really helpful trick. Oh, they are just freaking spectacular. The color of them is incredible. Why do I have a soccer thing going on my phone? I took a picture of them the other day because they're just blooming now. Oh my stars. Let's see. Where am they? The heat has not been kind to the flowers in the garden. So we have been out watering day and night. So we water from rain barrels because, the water issue around here has been terrible. Oh, I can't find it. So the water issue around here has been terrible because last summer we were in drought. And this year we're not in a drought stage, but we're still short water, so. Oh my goodness. Juanita, you'll find that sponge trick works really well. So even if you've got your paint loaded into your brush and you think there's too much water in it, just touch the surface of the sponge and it will take out the excess moisture. It's a treat. It's a great trick and it has worked for years. So our next stage is to do these pretty fuchsia, and this is the color that I base coated it with. This is Wild Berry. It's a very subdued pink when it's on this black background. It's not going to be subdued for long. I'm using Love Potion as the shading color for this. This is a new color from last year, this Love Potion. It is I won't call it fuchsia because it's not really a fuchsia color. It's more of a purpley pink. Almost like a super transparent or a June version of mulberry. So it is a very, very, very vibrant color. And we're going to use it to shade this pink. And it's surprising I was looking for something with a little oomph. Love Potion. So this is our shading, and I'm going to float. And of course, me talking about getting the brush full of paint just enough. And what do? I forgot to blot. So now I've got water everywhere. There we go. So I'm going to put a float right there. Love Potion has been sitting on my rack. I have a separate rack for all of the new colors. So it's been sitting in my rack because it's one of those colors where I kind of went, I'm not sure what to do with this because it's not a color I would normally have in my color palette. And it's very transparent. So I was sort of, what do I do with this? And I really wasn't sure what I would do with it. But now I am. I'm going to use it to shade these. Your pond liner broke and we're replacing it. Didn't use the same company as the... There we go. So I've got one layer on that. And although you can't, I don't know what it is about the lights here in this studio, but this color looks very different under the lights on camera. And yet it's just such a pretty, pretty tone. I love this. Love Potion. What would be a good substitute for Love Potion? Just a sec. You could use Joyful Pink. It's just going to take like 2 or 3 good layers. Yeah, the shading color is, well, it's there, but this is only the first coat. And it will show up shortly. So I'm going to dry this. And then I'm going to give it another layer. I need to see if I can't get this other light working. Wow. Here we go. So I've got a second layer of that Love Potion on this pink. Wow, it's really not showing up very well on the camera, but it's screaming off of here. But we're going to deepen it here shortly. Wow. La-dum-da-dum. I love this color, but yeah, it's really not showing up on camera, is it? So I'm going to dry this, and we're going to deepen this in just a second. I'm going to dry it. We're going to shade the center veins on these petals. Here we go. It's surprising how sometimes certain colors do not show up well under those lights. It's as if they sort of cancel each other out. Ruby, this is Ranger's Heat It craft tool. It's actually a heat gun. You can get these on Amazon. They're fantastic. So it's a heat gun, but it's very quiet. And it dries very quickly, which we need. There we go. So I've put a center vein. These petals, like so. The little bit of that love potion. I'm going to give this a deeper float here on this side. Yeah. And I'm going to use a little bit of asphaltum to deepen the shading. How can you lose a bottle of asphaltum? There we go. So a little bit of asphaltum. I'm going to thin this out quite a bit. I'm going to blend this out. I don't want this color full strength. And then I'm going to deepen my shading with a little bit of heavily thinned asphaltum. You knew there was going to be asphaltum in here somewhere. You knew it. And don't tell me you didn't know it, because I know you know it. So there we go. And a little float down there. So two things, that little bit of asphaltum little tiny bit of asphaltum will pop your shading quite nicely. I use asphaltum for all sorts of things, but it's my go-to when it comes to deepening shading. And it's very rare that I don't use this color, because I love asphaltum. Nice little float to deepen the shading. Just thin it out a little bit. Look at that. That little bit of a float. Oh my, there we are. So now look at our shading. Hi, Fran. The camera that I'm using is an Elgato Prime. It's a face cam. It is a webcam, but it's built like an SLR. It's an absolutely fabulous camera. So I'm going to take a little bit of our wild berry, which is our base color for these. Just a tiny bit. You don't need a ton of it. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of that, just a little on my brush. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of warm white and I'm going to blend the two together. I want a very light pink. And then we're going to add a highlight like so. I need my mop. There we go. Nice little highlight right there. And although it looks rather white, it's not. It's more of a pink. And we're going to use a little bit of that to highlight the tips and opposite that shadow. Look at that. So I'm going to soften that. And I'm seeing in a few spots where I've got some little bits that are sort of flopping out onto the black. There we go. Hi, Elaine. Elaine from the UK, welcome. It must be getting a little late in the day for you. Must be past tea time. Oopsie daisy. I messed that up. I don't have enough water in my brush. There we go. There we go. Well, I don't have a wheel today because my wheel operator is not here. So what we're going to do is we're still going to copy and paste. And when Renee gets home tonight, we will draw some winners. But I do have very lovely giveaways today. We have a beautiful drawing set, some nice pencil sets to give away, some really nice ones. They're full sets. I think the average set's got 12 pencils in it. They have a variety of softness included in there. So yeah, we have some really nice giveaways. And of course, we always have some fun stuff from both Renee and myself. And there's even some stencils in there. And, you know, our usual little goodie bag. And of course, a little create bag to go along with it. So in order to get your name on the wheel, all you have to do is just hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching on my YouTube channel, and join us in the chat. All you have to do is say hello, and your name will go on the wheel, and we spin it. We have two winners, two lucky winners will win those pencil sets and all of the other goodies that we have packed in there. Yep, just after tea time, 6 o'clock. It's so warm. It's warm everywhere, I think. But it's been so huggy here. It's just been, yeah. So look at that. What a difference that we went from that blah pink. And then we added, you know, those highlights, those softer highlights in there. And it, poof, off it comes. So I'm going to take my extra long detail liner, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of warm white and a tiny bit of that wild berry. And, oh goodness, what did I do to my brush? There it is. Okay. So at the tip, you know, there's always a couple of little turns on these things. So I like to, oh, stars. I completely messed that one up. I have too much water in my brush. See? I should have used my sponge. And I'm going to put a little stroke of it there. Those little flips, those little turnovers, they do make a big difference to things. And then we've got one here. They don't have to be very big. They don't have to be bulbous. They can just be a simple little line. It always amazes me that it takes so little sometimes to make things really pop. And then I'm going to come over here. Here we are. Now we've got this little bud over here. I'm going to put a highlight right there. Hi, Janice Costa. I'm going to put a few little curved lines here and a little stroke there. I found that this little detail, adding that little swirl of white at the tip of the flowers, it just gives them a slightly glossy look. So they're not just, you know, a flat pink. So I'm going to dry that, and then we're going to tackle our very pretty, the little skirt, that little bell of color. I always think that this is so pretty. Now, I only have one coat on here, and you can see it's not a perfect base coat by any stretch of imagination. And you can also see that I've got lots of little black lines showing up through there. It's kind of gross. So I'm going to use some thinned warm white. And we're going to paint over the whole bell, including all of those lines. Now, the nice part about this, because of the way I do this, I can still see those lines, but now I have a nice even coat of warm white, but I can still see those lines. Hi, Patsy. I use asphaltum all the time. So I'm going to do the same thing to this one. Somebody messaged me the other day and asked me why I do that. Leave those little spaces, because I hate tracing things again. I'm, in all honesty, a little lazy. I'm always trying to find ways to do things a little simpler. And I absolutely detest having to retrace everything. So this is my method. I leave a very fine little space between the various sections. I put my base color in, and then I put a wash over top of it so that it mutes those lines, but then I can still see them. Here we go. So I'm going to grab this angle has split desperately needs to be cleaned, so it's going in the clean me bin. And I grab a clean angled shader. Now we're going to continue using that love potion, but we're going to blend this out quite well on the brush. We don't want this color full strength, and this is where you're really going to see this color. We're going to shade up underneath and at the top of those petals. Look at this with this color. And we're going to shade into the folds and where the petals overlap. Just like that. Now the nice part, because I can see those lines, I can see what I need to shade. So we've got a nice little shadow at the top of that petal. And we're going to put a nice soft one at the bottom of the petal as well. Just like that. And as I said, I've blended this out quite a lot. So it is not very strong. And then I'm going to shade underneath and inside the bell or the skirt. Like that. Ta-da! So we're using Love Potion. Up underneath. Look at that. Okay, something's... My screen is blinking. I don't know why. What do I use to clean my brushes with? I use Jack's Studio Soap. I love Jack's Studio Soap. It's a Jack Reichison product. You can order it off the Deckwort website. And anytime you order from the Deckwort website, use my coupon code Tracy M. Or Tracy, I'm sorry, it's Tracy M15. It'll give you an extra discount. It is marked on my on the description on my YouTube channel and at the top of this video. So, what is going on the screen? I don't know, it keeps blinking. Yeah, it's just my monitor that is blinking. I don't know why. Okay, so I'm going to try this. Little float up under there. Now, it is going to look a little messy. And that's until we come back up under here. And then I'm going to take a small amount. Again, just like I did on this one, I'm going to put a little float right at the edges. And I'm going to dry this, and we're going to repeat it one more time. Little float of love potion. One more time. Deepen the floats underneath. Deepen the floats around so that we're separating all of those petals. I love this color. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Now, the next step for this is surprising. I'm just deepening all of this shading. Here we go. We're going to use a color that I don't use very often. Oh, Lucy, I know that. Because you guys are the most awesomest. That's why. So I'm using titanium white. Now this is a color I do not use very often when I find it very cold. I'm not a cold color person. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of titanium white. I'm going to blend this really well on my brush. And we're going to highlight. So opposite the shadow on these flowers, look at this. So right down, and then bring it along the edge of the petal. Look what that does. So when we have that little float of thin titanium white, it softens the boundaries between the two colors, between that darker float and the lighter titanium white. So just putting a little of that titanium white at the edge of the petals, like so, it softens that boundary between the two colors. And then you can highlight the edges. Same with that back, the back of the petal back here. Give that a very soft little float. See how that white mutes the purple a little bit? That purplish color gives it a really pretty, soft and delicate look. And I'm going to do the same thing in here. Whoops, I've got too much paint. Here we go. So I'm not burying the color, I'm just muting it a little. So there's that highlight right at the edge. Little float back there. So wherever you've put a shadow, you're going to highlight on the opposite side. So right there. And right there. So it just softens the boundaries. But I love that delicate look that it gives to things. So it kind of mutes the tone a little. And I'm going to bring this float just soft, soft, soft along the edge there. There we go. So I'm going to dry that. And then we're going to deepen the shading on this the same way we did with the petals. We're going to use a little bit of asphaltum. And I'm going to deepen the color up under here. And under here in particular, get into that bell. Right there. It's funny, when I paint like this, a lot of the time, and I've noticed this recently. The first time I painted, it's very dark. Second time around, it's a little softer. And usually by the third time I've painted it, it gets even softer still. But I finally managed to find that, that sweet spot. I tend to be a little heavy-handed with color at times. I know, shocking, but there it is. There we go. So I'm going to dry this. And I'm going to give it one more shadow up top, up close to the very top of this. I'm going to add a little bit of Love Potion to that asphaltum. And that's going to be the deepening color that I use at the top. So I've added a little asphaltum to some Love Potion. And it's going to give me that nice deep shadow that I'm looking for. There it is. A little bit under there, a little bit under here. So I'm going to dry that, and then we're going to paint the stamens. Oh my God, mosquitoes. Linda Scorsone, good afternoon from Nebraska. Lovely, lovely Nebraska. So we're going to use a little bit of avocado toast. And we're going to thin it out quite a bit. Because we want it to come off the brush. Yeah, it makes it pop, doesn't it? So I'm going to start right here, and we're going to use a liner to stroke in these long stamen. Take your time with it. Something that's really unique about fuchsia in general is these long stamen are remarkably straight. And so we want to keep them that way. I did these in colored pencil a couple of years ago, and I just loved them. I still think that they're so, so pretty. So there's those long stamen. We are going to highlight these, so don't panic thinking you've got to get them just perfect the first time. So if your paint's a little thin and it doesn't look like much, don't worry. Ta-da! So we've got stamen, and I'm going to use a little bit of baby duck. My favorite yellow. It's that soft buttery yellow. It's such a great color. And we're going to use a little bit of orange flame. Just because that's also my favorite orange. Now, using that same liner, I'm going to turn your piece upside down. And at the end of each one of those little stamens, you're going to put a little teardrop. Just like that. Teeny tiny little teardrops. I like the liner for doing this because it'll act like a round and it'll give you a nice little teardrop. There we go. So they're a little on the bright side at the moment, but that's okay. We're going to dry this. I posted a new little step-by-step on the on my page this morning, and onto some of the groups of a how to paint a daisy step-by-step. It's just a little worksheet that I worked up I'm using my software and AI to create them. So they're super easy, but they just give you an idea of how to do that step by step. So, and paint a daisy. So if you've been collecting those little worksheets, there's another new one up. Actually, there's two. There's one on how to do a stenciled relief, and then there's how to paint a daisy. So we're going to add just some few tiny little dots of orange flame to those little teardrops. Like so. It tones them down a little bit, surprisingly. That's right too, Brenda. You have that. I have the other one. Baby duck, it's such a buttery yellow. I just love it. It's one of my favorite yellows. That and saffron yellow. Or sunset gold. Either one of those is just magnificent. Okay, so we've got lovely little dots. But they are kind of, lost back there. So we're going to use a little bit of margarita. Now, you're going to have to thin this out a little bit. And I'm going to put on the left side of those stamen a fine stroke of margarita. It just gives them a little more definition. Look how well they stand out now. So it's just a fine little stroke on the left side of each stamen with a little bit of thinned margarita. And try to keep it as fine as you can. Oops. And that fine little line, especially on this black background. So now they stand out. Patrick. So let's dry that. And then we're going to give one more shading underneath that little skirt. So I'm going to take my 3/8. I'm going to pick up a little of that little bit of Love Potion. And we're going to float underneath again, but right over top of those stamens. So now they're from inside, so they don't just stop. Here we go. So there's a nice little shadow. And now comes the fun part. I love these little final little details that we do to things. Especially to flowers and leaves and things like that. I love these little tiny highlight. So I'm going to use a little bit of margarita, a little bit of my glazing medium, and a little bit of titanium white. I know I don't use titanium white very often, but it works well for this one. So I'm going to use, tab here. I'm going to put a very soft squiggly line along the edges of my flower. Just following the edge, but it does not have to be perfect. Just a soft little squiggly line, like so. I'm not going all the way along the back because we'd be going over top of the stamen, and you don't want to do that. So here we go. Keep it as soft and as delicate as you can. But as I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. So all it does is just soften the edges of those petals. And then here in the center of this petal here, we're going to put a series of slightly curved lines like this. I don't think we're close enough for you guys to see it, but it just softens it and adds a little highlight to the center of that petal. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one, just some soft lines. Very fine lines, nothing too heavy. There we go. Just adds a little extra highlight. Now for the leaves, we're going to thin out a little bit of margarita. And we're going to pick up, I might as well use a little of that titanium white since it's going to add just a little. Linda, you know what? You can actually use a toothpick. If you have a hard time with a liner brush, dip a toothpick into a little bit of very thin paint and do it with that. Or you can do it with a gel pen. If you can find a gel pen the color close. So edges of the leaves, and this is my favorite part. I love doing this squiggly line at the edge of the leaf. You can go on the leaf, off the leaf, and then put a little curlicue at the end. Just gives it that little flip. Heavily thinned. I love these little curlicues. Et voila. Then, gotta have a little curlicue somewhere. And I'm gonna go from the bottom. I'm gonna come up here like this. And I'm going to go in behind. There we go. It just needed one. There we go. So that actually finishes our leaves quite nicely. I am a big fan of using, multiple layers of these little lines. It just softens things nicely. Oh, you can't paint and chat. Yep. So I'm going to dry this. Look how pretty. And then we have a little dragonfly down here in the corner. Oh, you guys know I love my dragonflies. So I'm going to use a little bit of thinned warm white. Not heavily, just a little bit. And, oof. Okay, I need a different brush. I am fighting with brushes today. What's with that? Oh, hello. Okay, I'm going to switch to a rigger because that brush wasn't cutting it. There we go. That's much better. So I'm putting 1 coat of warm white on these wings. And I am leaving that tiny little space between them that we talked about earlier. Does not need to be fully opaque. In fact, the dragonfly, it actually works better if it's not. So, warm white wings. Oh my goodness. There we go. Good grief. 1 coat. Doesn't have to be perfect. I saw something from Deb the other day about her puppy having to have surgery. But I haven't, aside from that, I haven't heard a whole lot from her lately. It's summer. She's probably busy with family. Oh my goodness. Self-hypnosis to prevent buying art supplies? I'm pretty sure that there will come a point in the next couple of years where you'll be able to claim your art supplies on your medical insurance as part of a mental health program. Okay, I'm just cleaning up an edge here because I'm not happy with that. Here we go. Yeah. So much like I did with the flowers, I'm going to dry that. And then we're going to use a little bit of asphaltum to paint the body of our dragonfly. Now I'm going to pick up a teeny tiny bit of warm white with my asphaltum. Just a teeny tiny bit. And I'm going to paint each segment with this sort of lighter value of asphaltum. And I'm keeping that portion up top. So I'm just dabbing the paint along so that I get this sort of segmented look, but it's not perfect. So I'm going to dry that. And then we're going to take a little bit of warm white. And again, I'm going to thin out that asphaltum with a little bit of warm white so that I get an even lighter value. And then I'm going to use a little stroke of that all the way along, just roughly on each segment, like that. And then finally, I'm going to do just a few little dots of white along the top of that as well. So there we go. We've got a dragonfly body. Now, I have a little bit of Bahama Blue. I think right after Janet, wouldn't it? I try to convince Veterans Affairs to do that. So I'm thinning out a little bit of Bahama Blue. I don't want it full strength, but I need the color a little stronger. And I'm going to float closest to the body on both wings, just like so. I love this color for dragonflies. And then I'm going to come out to the tips of the wings and put a little float there as well. So it's going to leave the wing with a little bit of blue at the tip, a little bit down here, and then about 1/3 of the wing open in the center. Just like that. Ta-da! Oh, coming along famously. Now, oops, I missed a spot. I forgot this to shade under the wing. There we go. What did I miss? Penny? I try to keep my line drawings actual size, so you're not having to enlarge or reduce. But if you want them on a bigger surface or a smaller surface, you can always enlarge or reduce them. So I'm thinning out a little bit of asphaltum, and we're going to put a float underneath the wing. Just a little shadow underneath the wing to separate them. Just like that. Tiny little float. And then we're going to use a little bit of that titanium white. And we're going to put a float on the top edge of the wing, right in the center. Remember that open area? So it's just a tiny little float. And then at the bottom of the wing, right here. That little float kind of gives those wings a subtle translucent look. And then I'm going to come back in with my asphaltum, heavily thinned, and I'm going to put a little toning float over top of that Bahama Blue, like so. That little toning thing, there's our little dragonfly. Now, if you happen to be lucky enough to have some iridescent colors, you could take a little bit of iridescence and apply it to the wings of your dragonfly. It'd be great. Now, one of the things that we frequently have to deal with when we're, especially on black backgrounds, is this kind of thing. Right in here, you can see that there's a little fuzzy bit where a float went off onto the background. And little areas in a few places where, perhaps lines aren't as they could be. This is when you take your rigger or a small round, even a chisel blender, something like that will work, and a small amount of your background color. Thin it out a little bit. And this is where you can come and you can sharpen edges. Just take a little of that background color and clean up any areas that don't look crisp and clean to you. And I had a few of them in here. There's one here. And there's one in here. And the back of this stem here just got wider in one spot. So I'm going to take a minute and my rigger and clean that up. If you've got graphite lines that don't seem to want to go away, you can touch those up. I like to get rid of those little things. Those little areas tend to drive me buggy. So that's when you break out your favorite rigger, or as I say, a small round or a filbert, and you come in and you just clean up little edges with a little bit of your base color. It just makes such a difference in the end. See, we have another one of those got bigger than it should have been things right there. And underneath, just a spot there where it got a little too wide, which happens, it happens to the best of us. So that gives you the opportunity to clean things up really nicely. So the only thing left for us to do is to dry this paint so that everything looks good. I love my little dragonfly. I think he looks so cute. Laughing at you guys. Oh, yes, it does. Absolutely. In the medium line, perfect. Perfect iridescent color. Okay, well, I got one more thing. I just realized I'm not done yet. And that was to push this leaf back behind this border. We haven't put our border in yet, but I'm going to take a little bit of that black that we used. I'm going to thin it out. And I'm going to start off of the leaf, but I'm going to put a float of lamp black right along the edge of that leaf where it tucks in behind that border. Right here. I just want to bring in, there we go, nice little shadow. That's just going to tip that leaf in behind our gold border. Beauty. So we're going to be drawing on a border. So I want it nice and rigid back there. So I'm putting my board behind it. Now for the border for this one, I'm using a gold Posca pen. I have a couple of different ones, but I'm really quite enamored with this one. This is a gold Posca pen, and it's the 0.25. It's a fairly good one. I love these. I'm obsessed with my Posca pens. So, rulers. When it comes to doing a ruler and you're going to be doing borders, make sure you've got something with a backing on it. In this case, I'm using one with a cork back. One of my favorite tricks when it comes to rulers, if you're working with, say, a plastic ruler, I don't recommend plastic rulers, but if that's what you have, that's what you have. I take a piece of painter's tape, like so, and I tape a smaller ruler to the back of the plastic one. And what that does is it creates a space. See the arch? It creates a space so that the edges of the ruler don't actually touch the surface. That's what the cork does. So I don't want the edge of the ruler to touch the surface, because if it does, it will pull the paint underneath the ruler, and then you'll have a smear. And we don't like smears. If I'm going to have a schmear, I want it to be cream cheese on my bagel with smoked salmon. So I'm going to start at the corner, and with a light touch, I'm going to draw on a lovely little, oh goodness, I whoopsied. But that's okay, because we have a black background and we can fix things. See where I whoopsied? Oops. I am a firm believer in using corkback rulers for a couple of reasons, and I prefer a metal one. Plastic tends to get chipped after a while, as do the wooden ones. And you cannot get a straight, smooth line with a chipped ruler. It just doesn't work. So I prefer to use a steel-edged one, get dinged up and chipped. I moved my studio across the country, and I know what it took to get that sucker here to the East Coast. I will not, quote, not be doing it again. The poor guy that was driving the moving was absolutely flabbergasted at how much paint and surfaces and whatnot that I had in the great big Rubbermaid containers, not in boxes. He was just floored. And I didn't have half what I have now. I have a ridiculous amount of art and craft supplies. There we go. So there's our border. I'm going to dry this really well, and then I'm going to fix my whoopsie up here. So I'm going to take my rigger and some lamp black, and I'm going to paint out that little whoopsie. That was just a tiny little mistake. That actually looks pretty good. So the only thing we have left to do for this piece is to take a little bit of that lamp black on an angled shader, and we're going to float right over the gold border where that gold passes underneath this image. Little float of lamp black, just like that. And having that little shadow actually makes it look like the images are truly in front of it or passing behind it. There we go. And I like the float idea more than just, stopping, because this has a much nicer effect. So I'm going to dry this really well. There we go. And the only thing that I have left to do is to sign it. And I don't think I'll be doing it with this pen because it was open. So put your scribblature at the bottom. And there we go. Delicate fuchsias. Okay, how's that? Lucy, I'm glad you only took the earphone and not a microphone. So there we go. Delicate fuchsias. Such a fun piece to paint. They're not as difficult as you would have thought. But there you go. Simple gold border around those delicate fuchsias and their cute little dragonfly. Such a fun piece to paint. Now, as I said, we've done series before. I like doing things in series. So we've done the fuchsia, which I still think is one of my favorites. And next Saturday, we're going to be doing this one. This is the Janet's Columbine. I just think it's so pretty. The carousel pink, I used it to float with, but I don't have any more carousel pink. I used a little bit of white and I mixed it with my wild berry because I was out of carousel pink. But that's our highlight color on this, where I mixed those two pinks. That's where I used the carousel pink. And I can't wait for next Saturday. I just think you guys are going to love painting this. I have a slightly different technique for doing these leaves. And they're nice and bright and colorful. And I used a different tone for these leaves. I used a jewel green. And the color that I used is this one. It's periwinkle. It's such a pretty tone. And we used a new color from last year to do the shading. It's called Stormy. It's a beautiful, transparent, purpley blue, and it works so beautifully with this. So this is what we're doing next Saturday. This part of the series is going to be introducing some colorful butterflies. This one is fairly straightforward to paint. Nice and easy and velvety, and it picked up the color nicely for our Columbine. So we have lots of fun stuff coming up. So hopefully you guys join me. We're going to take all of the names off of the chat and the likes and the whatnot. And we will put them into the wheel when Renee gets home. And I will post the winners on the Tracy Morrow live page and on YouTube. So just a reminder that if your name is drawn, please hop onto the website at tracymorrow.net and click on contact us and send us your shipping information. And instead of talking to the table, I will talk to you. So don't forget to send us your shipping information if your name is drawn for the goodies. And I'll just quickly recap the goodies that we're giving away today. We have the gorgeous pencil sets, 2 of them, 12 pencils a piece. In each set, we have some stencils. I think we even have a surface in that giveaway. And as always, we have a fun little create bag for you so that you can store some of your supplies in. So that is our giveaway for today. Thanks so much for joining me as you do every week. I love having you guys here. I love painting with you. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. Click on the big red subscribe button and join me here every Saturday. We go live at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time with a brand new project at We Paint Start to Finish. So I look forward to seeing you here next Saturday. Tell my regulars, mwah, love you, stay safe, and I'll see you again soon. And pet your dog.